early 20th century, they control, in effect, a handful of companies, a huge percentage of the political speech in this country. And so I think when you have situations, they're not just censoring based on partisanship. Obviously, we've seen conservatives be censored. But when they're censoring things about some of the most important issues that we've ever addressed, how COVID started, whether lockdowns work, you know they're really doing damage to society.
Great damage. That was Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on this program last week on the dangerous impact of social media censorship. We were talking with Dr. Peter Kory and Senator Ron Johnson this morning about censorship by corporate dominance in social media and their obvious belief that Facebook, YouTube, Google, Twitter, they are the arbiters of truth. I don't know when they started to believe they were the arbiters of truth. Many of the leadership are political operatives, by the way. Senator, let's talk about what went on with Fauci and Facebook during the pandemic when we have these emails from Dr. Fauci talking with Mark Zuckerberg, and they were talking about big opportunities with an information hub. Let's look at the timeline of what Facebook did after these emails went back and forth between the two of them. Facebook decides to start an information hub, all things about COVID, but they censor certain important information, as we've been telling you. And then when these emails are released, where Fauci admits to modest collaboration with the Wuhan lab of virology, all of a sudden the Facebook Facebook policies change, and they say, oh, okay, we will no longer remove the claim that COVID-19 was man-made and manufactured from naturally. Your thoughts on what has taken place here in terms of the censorship?
Well, first of all, the truth has been hiding in plain sight since the beginning of the pandemic. And so it's difficult to explain the collusion, the corruption of media, social media. It wasn't all about the election. It was all about politicizing the campaign. The fact of the matter is, hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives because of the politicization of COVID. And I would personally much rather put my faith in doctors like Dr. Kory, Dr. McCullough, Dr. Fareed, that also testified before my committee. These doctors that have the courage and compassion to actually treat patients. And my plea to Americans is, go on other social media sites. This information isn't 100% suppressed. If you get COVID, seek a doctor that will actually treat your disease, because there is treatment for it. But no, Maria, the lies being told, the false narratives across the board in instance after instance is affecting our politics. The media got their guy elected, and now they're not going to admit that they've been wrong. And it's going to continue to cost people lives.
I was looking at a research report from Morgan Stanley, and Morgan Stanley has estimated that Pfizer could earn $100 billion from vaccines, okay, in the next 5 years. $100 billion from vaccines. Now, I just have to point out that had we had other treatments early on in the pandemic, that would have negated the opportunity to use emergency use authorization. Isn't that true? Dr. Kory?
It is true.
Yes, and that is absolutely true. And that may be one of the reasons why these alternative early treatments were suppressed. The key thing, though, that we still need to understand is that we need more than the vaccine. Not everyone's going to get vaccinated. Not everyone can get vaccinated. And around the world, not everyone has access to vaccines. And so the idea that we've identified an early treatment that can actually act as a bridge to, or as an alternative for, and even a safety net for vaccines. We don't know if these escape variants are still going to be protected by the vaccines. We now have another tool in the toolbox and more protection.
Let me broaden this out. And by the way, Dr. Kory, we should point out the effect that the litigious nature of our system has on creating restraints on drug claims. That's another major problem. But Senator, this is just one of many lies. Let's take a look at the biggest lies of all. Since the Democrats came up with this ridiculous big lie about election integrity, these are actually the biggest lies. The Russia hoax based on a made-up dossier to try to take down Trump. An impeachment of Trump with absolutely no crimes attached to it. The Hunter Biden laptop and all of his business deals and the money that he received from everybody from the former Moscow mayor's wife to the Chinese companies tied to the Chinese Communist Party. The origins of COVID-19, a lab leak, and the treatment. And then, of course, there's the armed insurrection. Armed insurrection is what Nancy Pelosi keeps calling January 6th, Senator. How many guns were actually taken up on that day, since she says it was armed?
None.
Well, by the way, they always talk about thousands of armed insurrectionists. I asked the FBI witness, not one gun was recovered either in the Capitol or on the Capitol grounds
Our
according to
people were
that
not
FBI
armed
witness.
on
So
January
that's
6th.
just one of the latest
No.
big lies. And, you know, Maria, we have to understand how dangerous this is for our democracy. Everybody's concerned about Russian interference in the 2016-2020 election. What the big media does, it is so much more influential and